Twins TV's first ever broadcast of an actual Twins broadcast, if you get me, was today. Unfortunately, the Twins showed fans something all too familiar in the second inning. Royce Lewis pulling up lame halfway down the first base line. He's got a strained hamstring, but you have to take a deep breath and count to 10 so we can get locked on Twins.
You are Locked On Twins, your daily Minnesota Twins podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Well, hello again, everybody, and welcome back to Locked On Twins, your daily go-to source for the top Minnesota Twins insight, discourse, and analysis. That's three.
There you go.
Personally, it's my favorite show of the Imperial Locked On Podcast Network, which, by the way, brings you your team every single day. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe where applicable. I'm Dave Brown, an MLB writer ever since fans were complaining about Marty Cordova missing a bunch of games every year because of injuries. I'm also a BBWA member, and I'm a Hall of Fame voter. Across the Great Plains of cyberspace is Brandon Warren, who's probably strained a muscle near first base himself. Brandon was a Twins fan who became a Twins writer, and now he's both as the site expert at Puckett's Pond, a blog about the Twins. Go read Puckett's Pond on the podcast today. Not again. Royce Lewis injures his left hamstring running to first base Sunday afternoon. It's just 11 days till opening day. Doesn't he realize? A year ago, Lewis didn't quite make it past opening day before injuring his right quad running the bases. We will know more when MRI results are announced Monday. But for now, he's not running. Also on Sunday, new roster cuts, and the departed include David Festa and Zebby Matthews. We'll talk about who else is ticketed for AAA or elsewhere, along with who the starting rotation is now that we know Festa and Zebby ain't in it yet. Brandon Corey Provis started the first ever Twins TV broadcast that wasn't a simulcast of someone else's broadcast. And in the intro, he specifically mentioned the feeling of optimism in Twins camp. It was because everyone was healthy, more or less. The thrill isn't gone after hearing the news about Royce Lewis's injury, but it's kind of been knocked down a peg or two. Where do you place it on the Richter scale of bad news for Twins fans?
Yeah, I mean, I kind of felt like it was my fault too, because I posted a roster prediction / projection late the night before. So I feel like, we get too far ahead of ourselves and suddenly, we say the team's healthy and then it's not. Putting me a little on the spot. It's like a 7-8, I would say, of like, if it's a scale of 1 to 10. It's problematic. I think this team is built to withstand some of this, but obviously it's starting this early, is not a good indicator of where things are headed. And it's the same problematic hamstring that bothered him going into the 2023 postseason. Now we saw he still hit a bunch of homers and had some heroics in the postseason, but it's something, again, too. Hamstrings feel like they could linger into the season, during the season. And so, again, it's fortunate the Twins have Brooks Lee. They have Jose Miranda, who could play third base. They've got some options. Willie Castro, sure good they didn't trade him for pennies on the dollar like I may have advocated. But again, it's certainly frustrating, to say the least, and definitely concerning.
It is. Here's some facts about it, though. This is from, I think, Bobby Nightingale. The infielder has had this is from Matthew Leach, I think. An extensive injury history, and maybe industry, too.
Yeah.
Including knee quadriceps, adductor strains, and is yet to play more than 82 games in a major league season. So that's kind of a depressing fact. But he had been feeling good all winter and spring until then. So it's not a quad. The quad last year and the other leg took him 2 months to heal. So it's good that it's not a quad, but as you mentioned, it is a hamstring like he had 2 years ago at playoff time. So those things can linger. They're going to do imaging, or they're going to announce the imaging tomorrow. I don't know if that's to let things calm down, inflammation, or what. Why wait until Monday? Why wait another day? Because this surely, even if it's not 2 months, is going to be 2 weeks. It's going to be at least a couple of weeks if it's like the best case scenario. And I don't think, Brock Stewart also, we're going to talk about him a little bit, I guess. He had a very mild hamstring injury, and it's like it went away the next day. I don't know that is what's going on here with Royce, but hopefully it's not too bad. And, even a week in spring training that gets you behind, so he's not, I don't see any way he's on the opening day roster. So, but we'll see what the MRI says.
How much does it concern you that it's lower body dominant injuries? I mean, I don't know what I thought the adductor was, but I was checking as I was writing, and I'm like, oh yeah, that definitely qualifies as lower body. And so,
there's an adductor and abductor, and
right.
One is the groin and one is the hip, I believe.
Yeah, and I was reading all those and just being kind of piecing it together. Like, it's not even in the leg where the ACLs were. It's it's hitting him in all different places where it's like, is there a common theme of like he's either too strong and not flexible enough in his lower half, or I don't know. The more you search for answers, I feel like the less you find them. But it's got to be troubling that they're all in the same general area, right? Like, I'm not overthinking this.
Possibly. I don't know. I remember last week I was in spring training, and there was a conversation that the writers were having with, I believe it was Bochy, manager of the Rangers, future Hall of Famer Bruce Bochy. And we were talking about how it seems like there's more oblique injuries than there used to be. Now, maybe they used to call them something else. I think they did like 30 years ago. They must have, because I don't remember hearing that word. And I paid attention. But he was just sort of freelancing, and he's like, do they work out too much? Is there not enough fat on them? And they're like, he was like kind of half kidding, but he's like, I don't know. And I know Bochy isn't a trainer, but you would think a guy with all that experience would have more of an idea, if anybody had an idea about
he's been around the game a long time. So yeah.
Yes.
Well, they say you can't pull fat, right?
That's sort of his point. I'm like, so are you guys going to go get In-N-Out Burger? And they're like, we're serving them right now before the game.
It's the Booth Bonzer story. Put some weight on that MFer.
So, you might be onto something there. I don't know, but I don't think they know either. That's kind of the scary thing. It did the play. He was running to first base. Oh boy. It looked like kind of what happened last year. That was a little different. He was running, I think he was making the turn at second or going for second, third.
Yeah.
And that's, and Royce talked about this year, not jetting out there and taking, I don't know how you do that though. You want to hustle. We talked about these guys should hustle at first base. So he was, and that's how he got hurt. So what do you do?
Justin Morneau had a good point too about the first time you do that every year. When do you do it? And he was talking about how Tanner Schobel, who had actually come into the game for Royce, did not go first to third on a ball to right. And it's like, this is a spring training game where there's not that much risk. You're running on Trace Thompson, so you know about his arm, relatively speaking. But like, if you're not going to take that risk in spring training and also just kind of get used to opening up, going around second base, when are you going to do it? And so there's a lot of running decisions that have to be made, or like certain types of exertion decisions at different points of spring training. And so, you still have to eventually get to a point where you open up full throttle. And if you're not doing that at some point in spring training, I think you're setting yourself up to have something like what happened last year in the opening game happen. Now, I'm not saying that's what Royce did last spring, but at some point, I mean, you have to play baseball. You have to play baseball the way you've played it your entire life, first to third, second to home, running the bases, running out in the field. And if your body can't withstand that, you got to make different choices. So again, like Keith Law said, it seems like they're just kind of snake bitten with injuries. Here we go again.
Well, yeah. And on that note, one of the things that I want to emphasize is this is something that happens in baseball. This isn't just a Twins problem.
Right.
It's a, good athletes hurt themselves all the time in ways that don't seem like they should happen, but they do anyway. So it isn't, we don't know what happened, but we can't just assume that it's because Royce did something wrong. It's just, or that is just germane to the Twins. I did want to point out a couple things before. What's our break situation again, Brandon? I know I should clear this.
We can do a quick one and then just jump right back into it.
Let's do it.
Well, right now we're giving some love to a new sponsor, one that I've actually already started using, and it's pretty cool. Have you ever checked your bank account and wondered where did all your money go?
Yeah.
Well, Dave just got back from Arizona, so boy, are his arms tired. But I bet he's thinking of some of this as well. I'm waiting for your expense receipts to come in, but
I'm allowed to do those?
No. Between dining out, online shopping, and entertainment, it's easy to lose track of your expenses, and that's where Monarch Money comes into play. It's your personal CFO giving you full visibility and control over your finances. It's not just a budgeting app, it's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and your spending in one place. So you stop just managing your money and start building wealth. I thought it was cool. You type in all this stuff and you find out your net worth, what you've paid on your house, what you have left to pay, what its general market value. Like you have all of these financial resources at your fingertips on just a very simple app. I couldn't recommend it more. All in one convenience. Instead of juggling multiple apps, you can use Monarch to check your finances, track your spending, and even plan long-term goals. It's all on the same place. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONMLB at monarchmoney.com and you'll get 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONMLB. You'll get half off your first year.
We are back with Locked On Twins. We're talking about, what are we talking about? Royce Lewis getting hurt. It's only 11 days to go until opening day. I did want to get in these quotes from Rocco and Pablo. Acknowledging the disappointment, manager Rocco Baldelli said, telling the media assembled, once you get through that part of it, once you get your eyes toward getting back on the field, we still have a lot to learn about this injury. Let's play it slow, wait and see, get some imaging done as we always do in these situations and see where we're sitting at that point. We'll know in a few days. We'll know a lot, actually, by how he's moving around and what he's capable of doing in the coming weeks. So, but I guess in there lies some hope that it won't take as long to heal this as the quad did last year. That's what I get out of it, which took 2 months. There's some hope that maybe it won't be. It is a different injury, different part of the leg. That took 2 months. Hopefully it won't take that long. That's one of the things I get out of Rocco, although he does say weeks, like, we'll see in the coming weeks when he's going to be ready to play again. Ugh. Pablo
like
Lopez,
14 days and lighting him on fire.
Yes,
at the very least.
So Pablo Lopez said he hoped Lewis's inherent optimism would get him through the situation, which is obviously frustrating for all parties. And we'll know more about the injury when they get the imaging results back. Brandon's already mentioned some of the other guys in the roster. We don't want to go too into that because we're going to do a show about roster projection construction pretty soon. But you said they do have Jose Miranda. I would imagine who's starting for the Royals, probably Seth Lugo. So I don't know. He might start at third base on opening day. Or no, they're not. They're in St. Louis. They're not in Kansas City.
Right.
Sonny Gray.
By the way,
yeah.
So with all the hubbub about Pablo and how his spring training numbers haven't been great,
yeah.
If I read John Denton correctly today, and that's not a guarantee, Sonny Gray did not finish any of his first 3 innings today because of pitch count and ineffectiveness. So
yes.
Guys are working on stuff.
Yeah, guys are working on stuff. Yeah.
Yes. I think Justin Morneau made that point a couple times. Like, guys are working on stuff. I'm doing something.
We're doing it live.
If you're a fan
We're working on stuff live.
Tim Robinson. But I just wanted to go back to that too. But yeah, it's again, not to steal anything from a subsequent show, but that might open the room for at second base Mickey Gasper or Edouard Julien and maybe, Brooks Lee moves over to third. Miranda DHs. I mean, they've got some options. I think it's going to be Sonny Gray. I don't think that. Gosh, is their manager still Ollie Marmol?
He's still Ollie Marmol. He's sort of waiting for Chaim Bloom to get hired and then maybe keep him or maybe not. So it's kind of
So I mean, I don't think he's announced anything yet, but I think it's either him or Miles Michaelis as the the good soldier deal. But we'll see what happens. I think that it's going to open up opportunities for guys who would not have otherwise gotten them, and guys I think who can play. I don't think this is a despair situation like a lot of people are kind of going to. And again, there's a lot of fatalist Minnesota sports fans. It's just kind of in our collective DNA. But they've got guys who can play to fill in. It's not the end of the world, but it's certainly disheartening to say the least.
Well, he was one of the three guys. We talked about it a little bit already. And Rocco's talked about getting Buxton, Correa, and Lewis in the lineup at the same time. That's been a focal point of spring training. And this is now there's no more of that. He's not going to be back for the rest of spring training. I don't think so. It is disappointing. I understand, I let go when people are emotional about it on Twitter, even when they say things like, I could run to first base without pulling a hamstring. Why can't he? They say dumb but things like that. But I also think it's coming from a place of being a fan and being hurt by what's happening and probably at their core genuinely sad, at least for the team, that they don't have one of their best players. It's
frustration with underdeveloped coping skills.
Oh, that's for sure. Twitter does not help alleviate that at all. So, all right. Royce Lewis out for a while. We'll see how long. The Twins, coincidentally made roster cuts today. They were, none of them were surprising, but they're names that we know, several of them. David Festa, you're going back to the minors. Zebby Matthews, you're going back. Luke Keeschel, Cody Funderburk, and Alex Spies, your guy. Zebby was great, like every time out. And he even had kind of a scary incident where he tweaked his hip, slipping on the dirt, fielding a play. I don't know if he actually missed any time or not. Maybe like
I think
day.
He did. I think he just had maybe had a throwing session pushed back a day or something, but it was not that serious. And I thought Funderburk was the surprising one, just because we don't know about Stewart. We got a pretty good idea about Topa. We know that Tonkin's not going to be ready. And, I've kind of planted, like, again, not to dive into the weeds of roster building, but I've kind of planted the seed in a couple different platforms that I think they bring a non-roster reliever up instead of Funderburk. And now that's about a foregone conclusion unless they do. Trying to think of what else they even could do. They'd have to bring like Marco Raya or someone along that's on the 40. So I think the Matt Cantorino spot, which he's going to miss the year. He had Phil Miller announced he had shoulder surgery. So they've got a 60-day IL spot to play with. I think one of the non-roster relievers gets that, and that's why Funderburk was sent out. I guess I wouldn't say early. It's not early anymore, but there's still 40 guys in camp.
Yeah, he's been. I don't know. I have seen a few pitches of his. He's been on TV a couple times. He's been pretty wild. He's been. I don't want to call him a disappointment. I didn't have like super high expectations, but coming off a couple years ago, I thought he would have been better last year.
Yeah,
it's a good thing they got Coulomb to pitch left-handed. I don't think there's another lefty who's ready to come up. I was thinking, right?
Misowitz. I think Misowitz might be their guy.
Oh, that's right. Mishavitz, I think. Yeah.
Shave it. Swinging a Misowitz.
Shave your pits.
I'm going to do the I'm going to try to do like a Chris Berman thing.
You want to like will it into reality kind of
swinging a Misowitz, or I don't know.
I should
probably say
funny-ish. That's funny, yeah.
Yeah, it's okay.
So the roster we don't want to get into roster projection yet, Dave. I'm putting it down. Zebby, he couldn't control the uncontrollables. or he couldn't control the controllables any better than he did, Baldelli said. So the things that he could control, baseball players' favorite saying, he did. Now, here's what I want to talk about. Zebby looks like he's ready to pitch in the major leagues.
Mm-hmm.
The only reason that he's not is because they owe Paddock actual money. And, it's not that Paddock has been terrible. He's been kind of himself. He's been a little inconsistent. He's been around the plate, which is generally what you want. Sometimes he gets beat up that way. But he hasn't been lights out or anything, but he's in line first. I mean, I don't know that apparently there was nothing Zebby could do to make the team. I don't think it's definitely the wrong decision. I definitely question it though, based on just how he's pitched. He looks ready. And there could be 3 or 4 starts that you need to win this thing. And they're going to go to Paddock for them. So I don't know. I'm a little circumspect here.
I do want to touch on that. I think what we should do is we should take our final break, and then when we come back, I have a thought of what could/should have happened that would have made it all just fine. You want to hear that when we come back?
Yeah.
All right.
What am I going to say? No.
Well, I'll tell you what you should say. Bring me some pistachios, because looking for a snack that's both delicious and nutritious. I know I am. I've been trying some new dietary stuff. I'll maybe explain another time, but crack into a good source of protein. I'm loading up on protein as well with wonderful pistachios. Wonderful pistachios are one of the highest protein nuts you'll find. Each 1 ounce serving has 6 grams of protein, giving you over 10% of your daily value. Plus, they're packed with fiber and better for you unsaturated fats to help keep you feeling fuller longer. I love the ones that are still in shells, but they do have a no shell variety as well. Whatever your preference, Wonderful has you taken care of. I like to be able to crack them open and take my time and really enjoy each and every individual one. But I don't judge. This is a no judgment pistachio zone. If you want them without the shells, by all means, go check it out. You can get snackin' and get crackin' with the snack that packs a protein punch. Visit wonderfulpistachios.com to learn more.
We are back. Locked on Twins with Brandon Warren and Dave Brown. Before we get to your point about Paddock and Zebby, I just want to clean up a couple things with the guys who were sent down. Keishel does not, to me, Luke Keishel was sent down. He doesn't appear to need more seasoning in the minors as far as hitting.
Right.
But what he does need is to play defense as soon as his elbow lets him. And I think it's pretty soon, unless they push that back.
I thought they said maybe by the end of spring, or hopefully by the end of spring.
Yeah. Well, I thought it was. I had heard 3 weeks. I read 3 weeks, like the last week of February, and so we'd be there by now. But no rush. I guess it's a little whatever, because he looks like a major league ball player, but he needs to. If he's going to come up and play on the Twins, it's probably going to be at second, but it could be at first of the outfield. He's got time there too.
Yeah,
probably needs a little more getting his feet wet as a full player to do that. So that's
Hazmat will travel,
and Hazmat too. So watch out for that. And the David Festa did not have a good spring. He gave up more runs than innings. But Rocco, I love how he characterizes these talks. I had an exceptional conversation with Festa when I talked.
He loves the word exceptional.
Yeah. When I talked to him about the move, and he had a great understanding of what he's trying to do. He's got a really good baseball mind. That's fascinating. Fascinating, Rocco. Matthews and Festa, they don't just have upside. They are already very good pitchers, and they have a chance to be exceptional. So
he's right, though.
He is right. And I'm glad that's been my sense of Zebby Festa as well. And it's harder to be enthusiastic about Festa just because he's kind of struggled in the spring. But I think he's, a few solid turns away in AAA from getting back on track and being able to help the team. And I think they're going to need him at some point. So
for sure.
All of that, the guys that they sent down, it makes sense to me. Like I said, And sending Zebby down makes sense. I'm not sure if it's going to help them win more games this year.
In a consequence-free environment, I would have moved Paddock to the bullpen and had Zebby as the number 5 or number 4, wherever you slide in Simeon Woods Richardson. I think SWR is the 4 right now and Paddock is the 5, but I don't know that it matters that much. It's not much of a distinction. But yes, in a simulation, MLB The Show just came out. If I was to take the reins of the Twins and I knew that Chris Paddock had pitched in relief like he had that brief stint with the Twins, and I realized he was kind of a sunk cost, I think I would have gone that route. I think I would have done that. Now, the issues are what's the opposite of stretching a guy out? Compress a guy, condense a guy.
Smushing him, smashing him.
If you do that with Paddock, getting him stretched back out again is basically a non-thing because he's not going to St. Paul. And he's in a walk year. Like, he's in a free agent year. So you want to do right by him and do right by the team at the same time. I feel like there's a lot of things that have to be considered that my scenario would say, forget it. I'm doing this. I don't care what happens. But on MLB The Show, if we're in that imaginary world, I'd put Chris Paddock out in the bullpen. I think that's what I would do.
You'd put
especially with all the injuries now.
You'd put the cowboy out to pasture. Is that
yes,
what you're saying?
Out in the arm barn.
I think that given where Paddock's, he's the 4th starter. I think if you look at how Rocco pitches him, it's going to be Pablo Lopez. It's going to be Joe Ryan. That actually makes me a little nervous because he's got like 4 innings in the spring. He's the number 2 starter. Mm-hmm. Bailey Ober, number 3. He follows Ryan in order. I thought maybe Ober would go second, but they didn't switch that up. Paddock right. And then Simeon Woods Richardson. So since he's the number 4 starter and there are off days and blah, 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 and all that stuff, it does make sense to have Paddock in that role and not Zebby, the youngster, and making more certain, I guess, that he's going to take his turns when, quicker and so forth down AAA. You figure he'll pitch opening day, I guess, maybe he won't, but
and they play
that's what I would do. But
they play all their games in a row, so it's a lot easier to
that's true.
Schedule that stuff out.
They pack them in, so yeah. That's one of the reasons why going down to the minors is a good idea for guys in this situation because they'll get the work. So, but yeah, we sort of backed into our other news here as we wrap up. The starting rotation has been announced. Rocco had already said that Pablo is going to be the opening day guy, and that is the order according to how they're going in spring training. It could switch up at the last second, but Lopez, Ryan, Ober, Paddock, and Simeon Woods Richardson. So Ryan is only pitched in a couple games though, so that has me a little nervous. The other guys are more built up. Paddock less so, but Ober and Lopez certainly are, and Simeon Woods Richardson is kind of too.
He looks pretty good too.
He does. He looks good. I think Simeon Woods Richardson is the kind of guy that is going to, just by being more comfortable and learning a little bit every time he goes out there, he's the kind of guy, a little nuance goes a long way. He's a crafty right-hander. So
I wonder if he could be the right-handed version of like Jose Quintana.
That's not bad. I mean, I don't know about the pitch. But
I mean, decent rates, but nothing overpowering in terms of velo, strikeouts, pretty good walk rate, not a ton of grounders, but not a ton of fly balls. You just settle in kind of that league average strikeout rate. Nothing wrong with that. No doubt about that. I mean, right. Jose Quintana is still getting work. Did you see that post, by the way, that the Brewers now employ 10% of opening day starters from last year?
I did not see that.
Because they have Nestor Cortez and who's the other guy? They have Nestor and Quintana and probably Freddie Peralta, their guy.
Freddie Peralta.
But I mean, that's just funny, like to think of it as 10% of last year's opening day starters. Because
right.
Also Mr. Burke getting that for the White Sox, I thought was pretty interesting too.
It was. They don't have a lot of choices, but I got to see him pitch.
Yeah,
the other day down in Arizona.
Their closer depth chart, by the way, is hysterical. Well, not closer because they have that one guy that's projected to close, but their setup man rotation is like 7 guys to a closer who I don't understand why he's even on the team. But it's like, hey, Gus Varland and a bunch of other guys, you're the setup man today. Look at me. I'm the setup man now.
Yeah, you're talking about Mike Clevenger, who they signed for reasons unknown, passing understanding.
And it's bringing him back. Like, you had him and you decided you wanted him again. What? Like, I don't understand it.
Also in White Sox camp today, Joey Gallo announced that he's transitioning to pitcher. He's going to pitch.
I love that idea.
He's got a high 90s percentile arm strength. So the White Sox didn't want him. Of course they're like, Josh Barfield, their assistant GM's like, yeah, given where we are right now, it just doesn't make sense. Where you are, it's going to be like 2 years until the Sox are competitive, if I'm being charitable. Now would be a great time to see what Joey Gallo has as a pitcher. Yeah. Why the heck not? You'll give Mike Clevenger a job, but you won't give this guy a job?
Yeah, that doesn't really add up. By the way, thank you for making Locked On Twins your first listen today. Get some of those fantasy drafts in for your second listen by checking out Locked On Fantasy Baseball with podcast with hosts Dominic Martino and Matthew Ane. MLB fantasy draft season is here. So be as informed as you can and set yourself up for a league win. Find Locked On Twins and Locked On Fantasy Baseball wherever you get your podcasts.
We are going to Alexei Casilla tomorrow night. Brandon and Dave Brown saying so long. You snip me.